February 18, 1943, 10:45 a.m. Ludwig-Maximilians-University in Munich. The grand, atrium-style hall of the university is a cathedral of light, its stone arches echoing with the footsteps of students hurrying to their 11 a.m. lectures. The air is cold, but the building hums with the insulated, self-important energy of higher learning. Germany is in the 16th month of its brutal war with the Soviet Union. Just 18 days ago, the entire German Sixth Army ceased to exist at Stalingrad. The nation is shrouded in grief, fear, and a state-mandated, brittle confidence. Two figures, almost lost in a cavernous space, move against the tide. They are brother and sister. Hans Scholl, 24, a medical student, handsome, confident, a man who has seen the hell of the Eastern Front. With him is his sister, Sophie, 21. She is slight, with intelligent, piercing eyes that seem to see everything. She is a student of philosophy and biology. In their hands, they carry not textbooks, but two heavy briefcases. Inside are hundreds of leaflets, the sixth publication of a group that calls itself the White Rose. They climb the grand staircase to the top floor. The wide, marble steps are empty now. The lectures are beginning. The great hall below falls silent. This is their moment. They move quickly, a practiced, silent ballet of subversion. They place stacks of leaflets, pamphlets that call Hitler a tyrant and scream of murder, outside the doors of the silent lecture halls. They finish the job. They have a surplus. Perhaps 100 leaflets left. They could leave. They could walk out the front door, their mission accomplished. But they don't. Hans pauses, looks at Sophie. She nods. They walk to the balustrade, a high stone railing overlooking the vast, empty atrium 3 stories below. In a single, unified motion, they open their briefcases. Sophie, in a gesture of ultimate, desperate defiance, shoves the last stack of leaflets off the railing. For a moment, there is only silence. Then, a snowstorm of white paper. The leaflets flutter, twist, and dance down through the beams of light, landing like accusations on the pristine stone floor far below. The act is beautiful. It is poetic. And it is fatal. From the shadows of a doorway, a pair of eyes has been watching. Jacob Schmid, the university custodian, a portly man in a brown coat. A loyal party member. He sees the cascading paper. He sees the 2 students at the railing. He knows instantly what this is. "Halt!" he bellows, his voice echoing in the hall. "Stop! You are under arrest." He lunges, grabbing Hans by the arm, Sophie by the shoulder. The briefcases clatter to the floor. The paper wall, built on philosophy and moral outrage, has just collided with the brute iron force of the Third R. This is the story of that wall. This is the story of Sophie Scholl and the White Rose. To understand the rebellion, you must first understand the seduction. Sophie Scholl was not born a rebel. She was born in 1921 into a Germany of chaos, a nation defeated, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, and starving. When Adolf Hitler came to power in 1933, she was 12 years old. Like millions of other German children, Sophie and her siblings were swept up in the intoxicating promise of the New Germany. This wasn't just politics, it was a cultural revolution. It promised unity, pride, strength, and a place for everyone. Sophie eagerly joined the Bund Deutscher Mädel, the League of German Girls. She was a natural leader, rising to the rank of troop leader. She loved the marches, the songs, the campfire stories, the sense of belonging to something bigger than herself. Her brother, Hans, was an equally enthusiastic member of the Hitler Youth. He was a flag-bearer, a charismatic leader of his own troop. But there was a competing influence in their lives. A quiet, unshakable force, their father, Robert Scholl. A liberal, a former mayor, a man of deep Christian conviction. He detested National Socialism from its inception. We can imagine the dinner table arguments. Hans and Sophie, flush with the excitement of a rally, describing the pageantry. And their father, quietly shaking his head. "Do not forget," he would warn them, "that you are German, but you are also human. And God's law comes before the state." The first cracks in Sophie's faith began to show. She was a deep thinker, a voracious reader. She was troubled when her Jewish friends were suddenly excluded from the League. She was told to stop reading certain authors. Her critical mind, encouraged by her father, began to question the rigid conformity demanded by the party. For Hans, the break was more dramatic. His Hitler Youth Troop, which he had built on ideals of chivalry and honor, was forcibly absorbed by a more radical, thuggish element of the party. He was even briefly arrested in 1937 for homosexual activities, a common charge used to break up nonconformist youth groups. The illusion of a noble movement was shattered. The brown shirts, he realized, were just brown shirts. They were not knights. The path to descent had been laid. It was paved by a father's morality and a child's disillusionment. The year is 1942. The war is at its peak. And the real catalyst for the White Rose is not a book or a lecture, but an experience. It is the experience of the Eastern Front. Hans Scholl, now a medical student, is drafted to serve as a medic. With him are several of his friends from university: Alexander Schmorell, Willi Graf, and Christoph Probst. They are sent to the Russian front. What they witness there will burn away the last vestiges of their loyalty. This is not the clean war of propaganda. This is a war of extermination. They are stationed near the Warsaw Ghetto. They see, with their own eyes, the skeletal figures, the children begging for bread, the casual brutality of the SS. Alexander Schmorell, who was born in Russia and spoke the language, makes contact with the local population. He hears stories that make his blood run cold. They are sent to the front lines. As medics, their job is to patch up the very soldiers who are carrying out this brutality. But they also treat the victims. They see Russian partisans, often teenagers, executed without trial. They pass mass graves, the lime-covered earth a sickening testament to the Einsatzgruppen, the SS killing squads. Hans Scholl, the sensitive, charismatic leader, is hollowed out. He writes letters home, letters steeped in code, trying to describe the indescribable. He writes to his family, "We are being lied to. What I have seen, it is a moral sickness. I pray for this to end." They see the arrogance of the leadership, the senseless waste of life, and the systematic, industrial-scale murder of Jewish populations. They understand a terrible truth. They are not soldiers in a war. They are accomplices to a genocide. In the mud and blood of Russia, the White Rose is conceived, not as a political movement, but as a moral necessity. Hans, Alexander, and the others make a quiet, solemn vow. If they ever make it back to Germany, they cannot, will not, remain silent. They return to Munich in the autumn of 1942, haunted, changed men. They are shells of their former selves, but with a new, terrifying clarity. The university feels like a dream. The students talking about exams, the professors lecturing on abstract concepts. It all seems insane. They begin to meet in secret. In Hans's apartment, in the studios of their artist friends, in quiet beer halls. They are not alone. They find others who feel the same way. The group solidifies. There is Hans Scholl, the driving force. Alexander Schmorell, the passionate, Russian-born intellectual. Willi Graf, quiet, methodical, and deeply Catholic, a man who meticulously builds their network. And Christoph Probst, a father of 3 young children, whose quiet wisdom grounds the group. And into this circle, in the summer of 1942, steps Sophie Scholl. She has come to Munich to study, but she finds her true calling in this small room of rebels. She is not just Hans's little sister. She is a force. She is more radical, more impatient, more absolute in her convictions than any of them. While they debate the philosophical nuances, Sophie asks, "But what are we doing?" Their first weapon is a typewriter. In June 1942, Hans and Alexander write the first leaflet. They are not professional revolutionaries. They are students. So they write what they know. They quote Schiller, Goethe, Aristotle. They appeal to the educated, the intelligentsia. The first leaflet is a raw cry of conscience. Nothing is so unworthy of a civilized nation as allowing itself to be governed without opposition by an irresponsible clique. We will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. They use a typewriter and carbon paper. It's slow, agonizing work. They make a few hundred copies. Now, the terror of distribution. How do you deliver a death sentence? You put it in an envelope. They buy hundreds of stamps, a simple act that could lead to arrest. They look up names in phone books, professors, doctors, lawyers, and mail them. They ride their bikes at night, dropping bundles into mailboxes, leaving them in phone booths, a reverse assassination, killing apathy instead of people. The Gestapo, the secret police, finds them. They are confused. The language is philosophical, not communist. They open a file, The White Rose. But they believe it's the work of a few cranky professors. They underestimate. They cannot comprehend that German youth, their prized asset, could be the source. The group writes 4 leaflets this way. Then, a pause. Hans, Willi, and Alexander are sent back to the front. Sophie is left in Munich, waiting, worrying, and thinking. When the men return, they are hardened. And they are joined by a powerful new ally, Professor Kurt Huber, their philosophy professor. A quiet academic, a conservative nationalist, but a man who, like them, is morally repulsed by the regime's barbarism. He adds an intellectual weight, a new level of rhetorical fire. And Sophie has a plan. Carbon paper is too slow. They need to escalate. She finds a source for a duplicating machine, a hand-cranked, just-a-stenciled machine. It's a massive risk. These machines are registered, but they get one. Suddenly, they can print not 100 copies, but 1,000. Then 2,000. Their operation becomes more professional and infinitely more dangerous. They are a fully fledged resistance cell. They need paper, ink, stamps. These are all rationed, all watched. Sophie takes the lead. She is a woman, less conspicuous. She rides her bicycle across town, 1,000 copies in her basket, whistling past SS patrols. She is terrified, but she does it. The 5th leaflet, written in January 1943, is different. The tone has changed. The war has changed. Stalingrad is happening. The leaflet, an appeal to all Germans, is a masterpiece of propaganda. It is no longer a philosophical appeal. It is a direct, blistering attack. Hitler is leading the German people into the abyss, it screams. It speaks openly of the 300,000 Jews murdered in Poland. It begs the German people, do not believe the propaganda. The war is lost. Break with the party. They don't just mail this one. They become couriers. They take suitcases full of leaflets on trains to Stuttgart, Cologne, Vienna, Hamburg. They are building a national network. And they are getting bolder. Reckless, even. In the dead of night, they take buckets of paint and stencils. They graffiti the walls of Munich. Down with Hitler. Freedom. The Gestapo is no longer confused. They are furious. The White Rose file is thick. They know it's a student group. They know they are in Munich. The net is tightening. Every agent, every informant is looking for them. The students know this. They can feel the eyes on them. They know they are running out of time. They have one last message to deliver. February 1943. The month that changes everything. The news from Stalingrad is finally, officially, released. The entire 6th Army, 300,000 men, is gone. Wiped out. Surrendered. Frozen. Starved. A wave of authentic, undeniable grief and horror washes over Germany. The state propaganda of glorious victory has cracked. The White Rose sees this. This is their moment. The German people are finally awake, finally receptive to the truth. They must strike now. Professor Huber drafts the 6th and final leaflet. It is a direct appeal to their own, the students of Germany. The day of reckoning has come. It begins. Our people are stirred by the fall of the men of Stalingrad. Arise. The dead of Stalingrad adjure you. They print thousands. An estimated 6,000 copies. They distribute them. But they still have a large surplus. What to do? On the morning of February 18th, Hans Scholl makes a decision. The university. They will distribute the leaflets at the university. In broad daylight. Why? Was it arrogance? Was it a tactical blunder? Or was it, as many believe, a final, conscious act of martyrdom? A decision that their lives were less important than their message being heard, loud and clear, in the very heart of the system they despised. Sophie insists on going. "I'm in," she says. There is no argument. They are in this together to the end. They fill their briefcases. They walk out of their apartment, past the Gestapo informants who are watching the neighborhood, and head towards the university. They are walking, knowingly or not, to their deaths. The university hall is cleared. The Gestapo arrives in minutes. Sophie and Hans are separated. They are taken to Gestapo headquarters at the Wittelsbacher Palace. The game is over. Now, the confession. Sophie is led into a small, sterile office. Seated behind the desk is Criminal Obersecretary Robert Moore. Moore is not a screaming, cartoonish Nazi. He is a professional policeman, a veteran investigator. He is a methodical, quiet man who believes in order. He expects this to be easy. A young girl, caught red-handed. She will cry. She will confess. She will blame her brother. He begins with kindness. He offers her a cigarette. "Fräulein Scholl," he says, his voice calm, almost paternal. "This is a terrible misunderstanding. We know you are a good girl, from a good family. You were led astray by your brother. Just tell us the truth. Help yourself." Sophie is terrified. Her hands are shaking, but her mind is sharp. She lies. Brilliantly. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says. "The leaflets. I saw them fall. My brother and we had nothing to do with it. We were just there." 4 hours, she holds this line. Moore is impressed and frustrated. He's never met anyone like her. She is logical, calm, and unshakable. But the evidence is overwhelming. They find a key on Hans. It opens a locker. Inside, more leaflets and correspondence. They find a handwritten draft of a new leaflet in the handwriting of Christoph Probst. The net has just widened. They search Sophie. They find a receipt for paper and ink. They find stamps. The lie collapses. Moore returns to the interrogation room. He lays the evidence on the table. "It's over, Fräulein Scholl." Sophie looks at the evidence. She takes a deep breath. And then, her entire demeanor changes. The frightened girl disappears, replaced by the defiant philosopher. The wall of denial crumbles, replaced by a wall of unbreakable truth. "Yes," she says, her voice clear and strong. "I did it. And I am proud of it." She proceeds to confess. But it is a confession of an unusual kind. She takes all the blame. She claims she and Hans were the only ones. That they wrote everything, distributed everything. She is trying to save the others. She is trying to save Christoph Probst, the father of 3. Moore is stunned. He tries again. "You are young," he pleads. "You have your whole life. Sign this. Say your brother and his friends forced you." Sophie stands up. She looks at this policeman, this cog in the machine. "I would do it again," she says. "Because what we wrote and said is also believed by many others. They just don't dare to express themselves as we did. Someone, after all, had to make a start." Robert Moore, in his own post-war testimony, would admit he was profoundly shaken. He had just met the purest form of courage. The Nazi regime cannot allow this act of defiance to be seen as heroic. It must be crushed. Swiftly. Publicly. The trial is set for just 4 days later. February 22, 1943. The defendants, Hans Scholl, Sophie Scholl, and Christoph Probst. The judge, Roland Freisler. Freisler is not a judge. He is a weapon. The president of the Volksgerichtshof, the People's Court. He is a shrieking, rabid fanatic, a man who personally berates, humiliates, and condemns defendants. He is flown in from Berlin specifically for this. This is a show trial. The courtroom is packed with loyal party members, SS officers, and a few terrified family members. The Scholl parents have driven all night to be there. The trial is a farce. Freisler screams. He foams at the mouth. He calls them traitors, scum, vermin. When Hans tries to speak, Freisler shrieks, "You have no rights. You are a traitor." But Hans, who has faced the Russian winter, is not so easily broken. He shouts back, "We are not traitors. We are Germans. We fought for Germany. You are the one destroying it." Christoph Probst, pale and shaking, thinking only of his wife who has just given birth, pleads for his life. Freisler mocks him. Then, it is Sophie's turn. All eyes are on this small, 21-year-old woman. She is calm. She does not flinch. Freisler leans over the bench. "You, a woman, have disgraced the German name. Do you have anything to say?" Sophie Scholl stands tall. Her voice does not tremble. It cuts through the hysteria of the courtroom. "You know as well as we do that the war is lost," she says clearly. "Why are you so cowardly that you won't admit it?" The courtroom gasps. She is not finished. She looks directly at the man who is about to kill her. Somebody, after all, had to make a start. What we wrote and said is also believed by many others. They just don't dare to express themselves as we did. She pauses. "Soon, you will be in our place." It is a prophecy. The verdict is, of course, decided. Guilty. Guilty of high treason. The sentence, death by guillotine. To be carried out that same afternoon. The end comes quickly. There are no appeals. Hans, Sophie, and Christoph are taken to Stadelheim prison. They are allowed one last, heartbreaking visit with their parents. Robert and Magdalena Scholl are brought in. They embrace their children. Magdalena, her heart breaking, looks at Sophie. "Remember, Sophie," she whispers. "Jesus." Sophie smiles, a calm, radiant smile. "Yes, mother," she says. "But you too." Robert Scholl walks to his son, Hans. He grabs his hand. "You will go down in history," he says, his voice thick with pride and sorrow. "Stay strong. There is a justice, even if it is not here." The parents are led away. The three friends are allowed one last moment together. They share a cigarette. They are calm, resigned, but not broken. At 5 p.m., the guards come. Hans Scholl is taken first. He walks, head high, to the execution room. As they push him towards the guillotine, he shouts his last words, words that echo through the prison corridors. "Es lebe die Freiheit." Long live freedom. The blade falls. Next, Sophie. She is led into the room. The guards would later testify they had never seen anyone die so bravely. She does not cry. She does not beg. She walks, with a quiet, powerful dignity. Her last recorded words, spoken to her cellmate just moments before. "How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? It is such a splendid sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter, if through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action?" The sun still shines. The blade falls. Finally, Christoph Probst. His last thoughts are for his family. He dies with their names on his lips. It is over. The White Rose, the Gestapo believes, is dead. The Nazis were wrong. You cannot kill an idea. The regime tried to bury the story. But they failed. Professor Huber, before his own execution months later, managed to get a copy of the 6th leaflet to a friend. It was smuggled out of Germany, to Sweden, to England. In July 1943, Allied bombers flew over Germany. They did not drop bombs. They dropped millions of copies of the 6th leaflet, retitled by the Royal Air Force, the Manifesto of the Students of Munich. The words that Hans and Sophie died for, the words of Professor Huber, rained down from the sky, a final poetic victory. The German people, who would not take the leaflets from the hands of students, now received them from the heavens. The rest of the White Rose network was hunted down. Willi Graf, Alexander Schmorell, and Professor Huber were all tried by Freisler. They were all executed. In total, the Gestapo would link dozens of people to the group, sending them to concentration camps and prisons. But the legacy was sealed. Today, in Germany, the White Rose is revered. They are not seen as traitors, they are seen as the true patriots. The square where Sophie threw the leaflets is named Gestwister-Scholl-Platz, Scholl-Sibling Square. The University Institute is the Gestwister-Scholl Institute. There are hundreds of schools, streets, and parks named after them. Why? Because in the darkest, most depraved moment of their nation's history, when the entire country was either a perpetrator or a silent bystander, a handful of students, armed with nothing but a typewriter and their conscience, dared to stand up and say, no. They did not change the outcome of the war. They did not topple the regime. But they saved something far more important. They saved the honor of Germany. They proved that even in the heart of the Third Reich, the flame of human decency, of courage, and of truth was never fully extinguished. The paper wall they built was small, but it was stronger than all the stone and steel of Hitler's Reich. And it stands to this day.